This episode is proudly supported by Anchor Food Professionals. Whether you're a caterer, cafe operator, or chef running a commercial kitchen, everyone knows quality products are the foundation of successful dishes. Anchor Food Professionals is a trusted supplier to the hospitality industry and has built a stellar reputation thanks to their consistently excellent butter, cream, and cheese. As the food service business of Fonterra, Anchor Food Professionals is home to many well-known brands such as Perfect Italiano, Mainland, Western Star, and Bega, and is now an important part of the Australian food service sector. Anchor Food Professionals has a history of innovation and expertise in sustainable dairying that delivers a world-class product portfolio. If quality cheese, cream, and butter are important to your creations, head to anchorfp.com.au to explore the range.
Well, it's important to, go to that extra effort for people we care about, and always making people feel loved and included. And more importantly, the value of sharing meals with people we love and bringing people together. Grandma's table's always been full with lots of people and lots of good food.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to an episode of Dirty Linen. My name is Dani Valent, and as always, I am super happy to be in your ears with a food chat. We would love you to sign up to our newsletter if you haven't already. We are actually giving away on the latest newsletter the book by today's guest, Mark Filippelli. Mark is a law graduate, a multiple hospitality entrepreneur, and he's recently released a book called This Book is a Huge Missed Steak. Is that right, Mark? Am I getting the pun right?
Yeah.
Welcome to Dirty Linen.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you on the show. Now, I have to start by talking about an egg that was not an egg. And you are responsible for this egg that was not an egg. It was at a Melbourne cafe called Matcha Mylkbar, which was an absolute Hughes down the street sensation when it opened. I don't know, you can tell me how many years ago. How many years ago was it?
It would have been 2016.
Okay, so
8 years ago.
In the dim, dark, ancient history of 2016. So this egg tasted like it was a little bit of coconut. There was a bit of sweet potato. There was a sense of a bit of agar that was setting it. But I guess the important thing to say about it is that a chicken had never been anywhere near it at this very vegan, very trendy cafe.
That's right. Yep, 0 clucks given.
So tell us the story and how it all led up to that egg in 2016, and then we can track forward to the future.
Absolutely. So I was in Los Angeles at the time and having dinner with a friend of mine. And like all exciting dinner parties, we were talking about reverse purification. And Vince, who I co-owned a restaurant with in Sydney, had the idea to use that technique to create an exploding egg yolk. And so, basically reverse purification is a process where you have two different chemicals reacting, creating a membrane on the outside and then a soft sort of puree on the inside. So you cut into it and then whatever's on the inside sort of squirts out like a traditional egg yolk. And I tried it once before on a cocktail in Barcelona, and it was a liquid olive. So you put the whole olive in your mouth, and you bite into it, and it explodes as this amazing tasting liquid before you sip on your martini. So we developed that into what was the vegan egg.
And why do you think it was such a viral sensation?
I think in the hospitality game, anything you can do that's like never been done before, or like using some innovation to something that hasn't really been thought of. And then of course right at that time was sort of like peak Instagram time, where you could put something up on Instagram and it gets some huge traction. And it was we were sort of blown away with how it all went down, but super happy with it as well.
And how does Matcha Mylkbar and that whole sensation fit into the rest of your career in hospitality?
I guess in many ways it was a turning point in shifting towards like a more plant predominant diet. And that was sort of like a really great alignment for me with like purpose and timing and trends like happening around the world. And that sort of absolutely took off. And that was 100% plant-based, which worked really well at that time. And I think since then we've adjusted, given that there's way more plant-based options now, we've adjusted to, like at Mark and Vinnie's in Sydney, the menu's sort of 75% plant-based, so still having some meat options. But that was that got some huge traction for us. It was a very exciting time.
It's interesting, isn't it? You know, and you touch on it, you know, as there are more and more plant-based options on regular menus, it's actually made the landscape for wholly vegetarian or vegan restaurants quite tricky, and many of them have closed or had to reshape their offerings. There's an irony to that, isn't there?
Yeah, exactly. And also with a lot of diets, I think it's important just to not be like 100% absolute, because some people are like pretty hardcore one particular way for X amount of period of time, and then their diet changes or their body needs something different. So when you're like 100% absolute on something, it can be like quite niche and almost restrictively so.
So tell us about your suite of hospitality businesses at the moment, Mark.
I've been sort of semi-relaxed the last 12 months. So about 24 months ago, we made the decision to start selling quite a few of the venues. So at the moment, we still have Mark and Vinnie's in Sydney and the last piece in Mulgrave, which has been going for over 12 years now. And I guess sort of on the back of COVID, it was just making the decision based on some forecasting that it might be a good time to sort of not move forward as aggressively as we have been. And for me, it was like take a bit of a step back, and that allowed me to then write this book and look back on the journey and, somehow put together, a book and a collection of recipes.
Well, I definitely want to dig into the book, but I know you're also a restaurant consultant and offer those services. And I mean, that's so interesting in the context of selling your restaurants. So what's your advice when someone comes to you? Is it like, oh, get out of the game?
Well, yeah, it's you have to really, really want to do it. And, I've been reading different things, and I think it's something crazy like only 1 in 10 restaurants at the moment that are getting in front at the end of the month. So you really have to think about, whether you whether you will be that 1 in 10 restaurants. And it's a really difficult time at the moment. And so there's lots of things to consider, but it's when I am doing the consulting, it's just really making sure that you have thought about absolutely everything and understanding that it is going to be challenging, and that at the moment it requires like a unique set of circumstances in order if you're going to succeed and do well.
And is that the reason that you hung on to the 2 restaurants that you did hang on to? Like, do you feel like they've got the most, cogent and compelling offering for customers?
Yeah, I think so. And like the last piece we've had for 12 years, and, in a great location, really amazing, loyal following. And kind of, as bulletproof as you can be in the challenging industry at the moment. And then Mark and Vinnie's in Sydney is run by the great man, Vinny. And so in terms of my day-to-day operation, I have very little to do with it. And so while he's happy running the show and putting on an amazing product, which is what he does, and yeah, it's great for me.
Okay, let's chat about the book. So this cookbook is a huge missed steak. And if my diction doesn't quite get the point across, the steak is missed. So it's sort of, I guess, foregrounding this idea that meat is not the only way to go when you're cooking. So tell us what we'll find in it.
Yeah, so I guess if we go back to what we were chatting about, sort of our first or second question, some of the I guess viral things that we created at Matcha, Mylkbar, and Mark and Vinny's. We're now sharing those recipes. So I've worked on it with a whole bunch of chefs, and it's the recipes that have been like the most popular, the most asked about, from breakfast to smoothies to cocktails to plant-based Italian. I've tried to put them all into a book with like a hopefully pretty interesting life story, and then loved working with my super nonna on some of her recipes and making them plant-based, and yeah, there's a few of nonna's recipes in there as well.
Well, tell me about Nonna and your history with her in a culinary sense.
Well, Nonna's an absolute legend. She, since I was able to drive, we would, more or less go to a weekly visit to Paran Market, and she's the most thoughtful human on earth. Like if you ever once had been to Nonna's house and told her you like apples, every time you go there for the rest of your life, there'll be apples there waiting for you. So in many ways, Nonna's a super thoughtful human, but also taught me on, why it's important to, go to that extra effort for people we care about, and always making people feel loved and included. And, more importantly, the value of like sharing meals with people we love and bringing people together. Like Grandma's table's always been full with lots of people and lots of good food.
So what are some of her key recipes and what have you done to them?
Well, the funny thing is Nonna doesn't actually have any recipes. So the breaking them down, she sort of does everything just by hand and by eye. So we actually had to sort of break them down. One of my favourite ones is this long stock minestrone that she makes. She throws a whole bunch of garden-grown veggies in there and some stuff from the market. Cooks it for a long time, and then these eggplant balls that she makes that she usually adds a little bit of cheese, but we've mixed it up with some nutritional yeast. And they go off, and she loves it. And we did a lentil bolognese together, and she gave me a 7 out of 10, which is pretty good.
7 out of 10 from Nonna. That is pretty good. Am I right in thinking there is something else done with eggplant in the book that is a little bit left field?
Oh, yeah, we do an eggplant ice cream. We experimented with some ice cream flavours. We had like a little Flinders Lane restaurant called Weirdos, and we experimented with some weird flavours, and we do a lavender and eggplant ice cream in the thing. There's this amazing ice cream store in the States out of Seattle called Salt and Straw, and they just do these incredible weird flavoured ice creams that actually taste amazing, and wanted to see if we could do our own like Australian plant-based versions of them, and therefore we came up with eggplant and lavender ice cream.
Wow, that is, pretty alarming. Have you ever been, Mark, to an ice cream place in Fitzroy called Fluffy Torpedo?
Yeah, I have. Yeah. I've got actually a takeaway box from there in my my freezer.
Yeah, okay, because they do some pretty outlandish ice cream flavors. I think something with lettuce and broccoli.
Yeah. And I love just the the idea of it, and I love trying new things. And yeah, those guys do an amazing job.
Yeah, it's so interesting. It's funny that that sort of experimentation. I mean, you spoke about reverse verification and just wanting to try new things, but then this sort of, I guess, constant. I don't want to say battle, but this constant striving to make things delicious as well. I mean, where do you see that balance between, I guess, pushing boundaries and pleasing people?
Yeah, I think if it doesn't have any substance to it, I think we one of the things we did at Mark and Vinny's, we do this blue spirulina tagliatelle, which is like this electric blue colour, and while that's like technically pushing an Italian boundary or law of making blue pasta, the blue algae has like quite a seaweed kind of flavour to it. So as long as that element is then adding some depth of flavour into the dish, you're actually creating, and you're not just doing it for a gimmick, you're actually doing it for, to add flavour or to add depth to a dish, then I think that's the best way to do it. Because gimmicks can sort of like come and go pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know if you're a Stanley Tucci fan, but I'm listening to his audiobook version of Everything I Ate in 1 Year. I think that's the title. Basically, it's just his diary, and it talks about what he ate. But it's really lovely to listen to. One of the bits that has stayed with me is when he speaks about going to a restaurant where the food sounds quite fiddly and fancy and a bit overworked, and he related it to acting. And a teacher of his who said, if you can see the acting, then there's something wrong with it. If you're just carried along by the story, then if the acting is invisible, then that's when it's good. I feel like you're sort of getting to something similar there.
Yeah, exactly, and especially with like Italian food, it's like simplicity in its at its core, and it's what makes it so beautiful. So look, it's great to push the boundaries, but you always want to come back to something that like tastes amazing at the end of the day.
So where do you sit now with your Matcha Mylkbar egg? Like, do you look back on it as a frippery or as something you're really proud of? Would you put it on a plate today?
Yeah, I think in Sydney at Mark and Vinny's, it's had a reincarnation as part of our carbonara dish up there. So the egg yolk is with the charcoal spaghetti up there. So it still exists in that form, but I think it'll always have a special place. And I guess writing a book, and a big part of it was being able to look back on the journey and go, that when we did this vegan egg yolk, that sort of, gained this thing, and then I met this person and we had these people come through the door, and just, it's like that the vegan egg itself is like an important turning point in my journey and looking back. So it'll always be special, I guess.
I love that. You don't want to, I guess, unpick any stitches from the journey, because here we are. So, Mark, you do go into, quite a bit of your personal story in the book, and I'd love to touch on that. We mentioned at the start, that you graduated from law. Like, what was it? A lot of people, I guess, feel like they have to go to uni and do what seems respectable, but then food really does hook you in. What was it like for you to decide that law was not the path for you?
I think I did 5 weeks at a law firm in the city, and then that was prior to my last semester of study, which I ended up doing abroad. And then I got back, and all I knew for certain at that point was that I didn't want to be a lawyer. I think for anyone at that age, like you're not defined by any one thing you've done, and just because you've chosen to go and study and do this, that doesn't mean you're stuck into that. And so I was lucky that there was this amazing cafe that had opened at the university where I was studying, and that in many ways set me off on my hospitality journey. So it was the good food and the good coffee from university that actually I learnt more from than my degree itself, I think.
That's really interesting. Do you want to tell us about the cafe and who it was and where it took you?
That was Salvatore Malatesta, who I think most predominantly well known for St. Ali coffee. And I think he's done over 100 venues now. And yeah, he was quite eccentric and asked if I wanted to be partners in another cafe he was doing at the University of Melbourne, and I had zero experience in hospitality at that time. And so there was Ben Cooper was like working, the head chef of Chin Chin Group, and my favourite chef in all of Melbourne happened to be working for Salvatore at that time, and I was working, so I got to work alongside him. There's some of the best baristas in the world working at St. Ali when I was learning how to make coffee, so it was like this amazing sort of really quick apprenticeship in hospitality where I was just able to absorb all this information, and I think that just set me on this incredible path.
That sounds really exciting, and so fertile and so much energy. What was it about hospitality and the world of coffee and cafes that hooked you in?
I think, and particularly unlike law, I found it like this amazing creative outlet. So, designing a venue, designing the menu, and just seeing it all come to life, and you're putting this thing out into the world, and just, it's this really nervous feeling, knowing are people going to come, are they going to like it, how are they going to respond to it, and then it's kind of this really addictive, beautiful high that you get when you've built something and you see it come to life, and I kind of got addicted to that, and I was just meeting all these incredible people, working with amazing people, like customers and staff and suppliers, and that end up becoming friends, and that I just never really looked back.
I think it's one of the really clever things that Salvatore has done over the years is to bring people into his businesses as partners, so that you don't know what you don't know, but you've got a stake in it. Do you think that that's something that other business owners could consider, just sort of involving up and coming people in the business from the get-go?
Yeah, of course, and that was another big lesson that I've taken from Salvatore as well, and have then gone on and implemented. Often when we've opened a new venue, someone we've worked with before, one of our staff members, they've had the opportunity to have a stake in the restaurant, and particularly if you want to run multiple venues, having people you trust, and people that know how you like to operate, people that are good people. It's a really great incentive for them, and it really works both ways.
Yeah, I mean, is there an accountability for you as an owner when you're doing that? Because, if I think about some of the perils of running a small business is that you just sort of get buried in it, and perhaps the systems aren't as watertight as they could be. But then I suppose if you're bringing someone on and you're like, okay, this is how we do this, you really do make yourself accountable as well.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, that's a really important thing. And you still have to make sure you're accountable once you have multiple venues. And yeah, it can get tricky at times. But if you want to expand, it's like a really clever and great way to do it, I think. Yeah.
Talk about the emotional arc of expanding in the way that you did and then deciding to sell. What's that been like for you?
I think during COVID, I think like many people in the hospitality industry, it was pretty dark days at times, and for me, I realised like how much my self-worth and identity were tied into what I did for a living, and for me, it sort of, it wasn't necessarily the best way to live, and making that decision was really difficult because it's sort of all I've known my whole working life. But it being able to actually step away. The overwhelming feeling was relief, and then I think then looking back over the journey, and then actually that's when I was able to start writing this book. You're actually able to see like all the different things you've accomplished over that time. So it was a really difficult and huge decision to go, hey, this is the time. But I think given everything we'd all been through and the timing and the forecasting, it just, it felt right. And then once finally made that decision, like it was a good time to sort of step back. So it felt relieved and, could find my way getting back to myself.
Yeah, wow. So what is it? It's so vulnerable, I guess, is the word that comes up. I mean, what have you found? What have you learned about yourself? Like, where do you get your sense of self from these days?
Well, I think having a great circle of family and friends, and just knowing that they appreciate you for who you are and not what you do. And I think just being able to look at my own friends and family, and if I knew they were going through a hard time, you'd do anything for them. So I think it's just it gives you a chance to be grateful for the things you have, the people you've met, and actually look back and go, well, it's actually been an amazing journey, and I've been so fortunate. And even though the financial checkpoints and those things might fluctuate, it's actually been remarkable because of the people you've met and the moments you've had and the adventures you've gone on. So yeah, it's just it was nice to sort of separate myself from, what I did for a living, and to see, how lucky and great life had been.
Mark, something else that you're open about in the book is your health journey, and that's definitely had its ups and downs. Can you talk to us a bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And actually, in the book was my first time telling a lot of people. I think at the time of writing the book, I'd only told a handful of people. But it was 2014 or 15. Got diagnosed with this thing called hairy cell leukemia, and that sort of triggered a whole number of things. But I actually didn't tell anyone that I had it, and I went and did my chemotherapy treatment, and then just was going about life as normal, and then sort of had a few setbacks on the back of the treatment, and had to tell my brother and my parents what had been going on, and that as far as cancer goes, I had it on a really low scale, and it's not. Yes, that's my story, but I didn't never wanted anyone to treat me differently, better or worse, or feel sorry for me, particularly given how hard some of those stories might be for people who have been faced with that or have a loved one go through that. Mine wasn't a bad story, but what it did, the setback from the treatment forced me to have 3 months off, and then in that time I just started looking into all the different diets that existed and why there's not more of a consistent or better guidelines to what we should be putting in our bodies, and I had some side effects from the treatment that left me with a rash from sort of ankle to neck, and so I kind of went to hide away in the States, and I was just eating all this amazing food and seeing all these trends in plant-based and plant predominant restaurants, seeing all the matcha things that were sort of happening, and so there was this really lovely alignment of this newfound passion I had to encourage people to eat healthier, and also the commercial trends that were happening worldwide, and that actually is how I, first, in part came up with the idea for Matcha Mylkbar, and then Weirdos and Mark and Vinny's, and on this journey to get people to, just eat healthier for their own well-being.
Wow, that is such a story. It's amazing to me to think about you having this shocking diagnosis and just keeping it to yourself. I just can't imagine the energy that must have gone into maintaining that privacy around that. It's really interesting. I mean, how do you reflect on that now, like with having a bit more time to think and sort of coming back to yourself in a different way after selling all the businesses?
I think, like, for me, I was pretty black and white with the whole thing at the time. Like, once I knew this is what I had, it was found early, it was treatable. This was the course of treatment. I was like, okay, that's what it is. I'm going to deal with it. I don't want anyone to feel sorry for me. I'm gonna push through. But I think, perhaps I wouldn't have told anyone if I didn't have the side effects to it. I would have just pushed on and gone through and not have told anyone. But then looking back and writing a story, I couldn't tell the story without mentioning this, and like why I was like so passionate about, caring about what people are putting into their body. So it just felt like, the right time to tell people. Like, it was 9 or 10 years ago now, so there's no fear in like telling people that this is something that I've gone through or something I'm still dealing with, because, I've been in remission now for 9 years, and, it's got a very low chance of coming back. So it just felt like the right time to give it, to tell my story. I guess if you're putting, your story out to the world, it's just, you want it to be as real as possible.
And Mark, I mean, how do you see healthy eating now? Like, what does that mean to you, and what would you advocate for when you're speaking to people?
I think if you look into it, like the Mediterranean diet is a really good starting point for anyone. But it all depends on how often you're working out, what your fitness thing is like. So it obviously varies from person to person, but for me, I think it's like about not being absolute on anything, and just trying to eat as well and put as many good things into your body as you can.
And so, like, what's a frequent dinner for you, for example?
So I still go to my grandma's like every Monday night for dinner, and she'll do like a pot of that like epic minestrone, lots of veggies on the sides, and meat, I guess in many ways is kept to a minimum, and then when it is used, it's grass-fed, hormone-free, antibiotic-free, and using like really high-quality meat when you're having it.
Yum. Just let me know the address and I'll be there next Monday.
We actually had a little book launch party, and we ended up having it at Nonna's house, and there was like 100 or so people just came down to Nonna's house for the little book launch, which was really lovely.
Love that. Mark, we love to give people advice to take away in this show, and, just putting your consultant hat back on. If somebody's got their own small business and, business is not easy, it never is, but it's been a particularly difficult period, where would you tell people to start looking, to start, pulling back the covers and working out where the issues might be?
I think first and foremost, I'd say just not being like too hard on yourself. It's like it's a collective problem that almost everyone in the industry is going through. So starting with that is like don't take it personally. And two, I think it's more so than like one particular thing. It's like several. I wouldn't even call them 1% things, like 0.1% things that you can do across the board. Like for us, like those COVID times, sort of force you to like micro-analyze every single detail, from knowing like, how much is a takeaway pizza box coming to how much you're paying per kilowatt per electricity. So I don't think there's one small thing you can do. It's just going to be several micro things you can do, and just being patient, and also being realistic with being okay with like letting go if you actually look at it in black and white and you can do some forecasting. It's actually okay just to say that you gave it your best and it just unable to work. And I think there's I think everyone is just has been, from like my understanding of speaking to people with the industry, everyone quite hard on themselves and blaming things where it's just possibly the worst time in hospitality in our lifetime. And so if you can look at it in great detail across those 0.1% things and find some room for improvement, that's going to be amazing. But also being realistic with forecasting and, the long-term picture of like, what is this going to cost you to hang on for this amount of time? Is it actually okay to let go? I don't know if that's helpful or not.
Well, I reckon it is helpful, but I think it also will bring up for a lot of people what you went through, which is, your identity, like who are you without the business? But I guess, that's not a bad question to ask.
Yeah, for sure. And I think one of the things in common with the longevity zones and the healthiest populations in the world is that in addition to eating well, they have a great community of friends, and they have love and support is actually a huge part of any great existence and any living a great life.
That's so true. Like, eating the minestrone is one thing, but eating it with Nonna and all your family is another. Yeah, love it. Oh, Mark, so nice to chat to you. Really appreciate your openness and, just what you've brought to the hospitality world over the years. And, you've certainly given me things to think about. And, congrats on the cookbook. This cookbook is a huge mistake. I hope it does really well. And, let's stay in touch.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you so much.
This is Dirty Linen, and I'm Dani Valent. We air the issues that the hospitality industry finds hard to talk about, hearing from different people with unique perspectives. We want to hear from you as well. If you have something that needs to be said about a topic, get in touch so we can include your perspective. Contact us at dirtylinen@deepintheweeds.com.au or hit us up on Insta at Dirty Linen Podcast. We can't wait to hear from you.